The Medford Anonymous Series Part 1.
Yeah, we're out here. And we're going to be giving Anonymous a call. And it's always an inspiration to speak to Anonymous, who is probably one of the few people I know who has really tapped into the depths of meditation and can give us some insights on why it can be useful. All right. Let's see.
Who knocks upon my door?
Yes, Anonymous. I couldn't think of anyone more able to answer the question of the value of meditation.
Well, that's very kind of you. I can think of a lot who can explain it or speak from a higher plane myself, although most of them, unfortunately, are in the spirit plane. I mean, I know them through their books. But yes, it's a very worthy topic. I would like to say, to begin, for those who may have listened to the talks on the resurrection and that Good Friday when we first started this and opened the door, something happened after we talked that I got to explain as a very interesting synchronicity. I went out to my neighborhood afterwards, and something happened I never saw in this nearly, in just approached the body 60 years now. And I'm shopping, and I hear for those who haven't seen the YouTube segment, we talked about the meaning of the crucifixion and resurrection, and I was playing the Peter Gabriel, which actually I'm on again, Peter Gabriel soundtrack to The Last Temptation. So I go out, I'm shopping after our talk, and all of a sudden I just hear a drum beat, boom, boom. And I said, it was slower than that, but I'm speeding it up for our conversation. And I turn, and I never saw this before, and I see a reenactment of Jesus on the way to crucifixion. And I did a double take, because I remember our conversation and the music, and I did a flashback to like 2,000 years ago. I actually got very emotional. I felt very sad. And of course I realized this is a reenactment. They're fake whips and so on. But what's interesting is, they're dressed to the part, I had never seen that before in all my years here. So I thought that was very synchronistic with what we were discussing. So the topic of meditation, yes. And also I noticed on your web pages, I guess they call it, that one of the highest responses to your endeavors to say something and help people out here, and then the whole self-discovery, because obviously it's a dual purpose, is you had hundreds of responses to one of your talks on people medicating with Oxycontin. And obviously it's an indication of the concern of those who know people dealing with it or those who are dealing with it themselves. And it could be any other thing. I mean, it's just any drug is what I see. Any medication it's a pacifier. And one of the reasons we pacify in such ways, whether through a liquid or solid or a gas, is because unfortunately most of us won't show the magic key of meditation, which is the real way of getting high and the real way of, like the man said, I have meat you know not of. I have food you don't know of. And this is why people are so out of tune, out of touch, and feeling the pains and the gravity of the situation we're all in. We seek a release. We seek nourishment. So your question of meditation and what is it is to me really the door out of any mess that we can perceive or actually be in, whether physical, emotional, or mental. Unfortunately, it's like there's a fire, and the fire alarm box is being set off. So instead of putting out the fire, what happens is what we do is we try and destroy the alarm box, and coming to destroy the fire alarm box doesn't put out the fire. So destroying the fire alarm box is like just basically avoiding the issue, and that's what drugs really do. It's just blinding us to what's there, and we're not knowing how to face it, because most of us, again, haven't been shown by our spiritual teachers how to experience God. We just hear about God. We've heard a recipe. They're talking a recipe to us when we're starving. So for those of us who still use our will, the most precious gift to overcome, and know there's got to be a better way, as an adult, we have to take it upon ourselves, and not totally alone, because, we're doing a conversation here, but there are great books out there, and there are great teachers. I don't think there's many, but there are great teachers out there, as there are in any field. Very few way up in the mountaintops who have been sharing ways out of this situation that we all find ourselves in. So meditation. First of all, I would say prayer is they're like two sides of the same coin. Like prayer is a talking to God or our higher self, for those who don't like the word God, and meditation is a listening to the response. And it isn't just listening like we think of like with our ear. It's a listening where we actually experience. We feel something along with the listening. So how to do it, why to do it, how to prepare for it, how not to eat something heavy for at least 3 hours. What?
So let's start with sort of like, we're in this physical body and we're looking for something, a peace and a joy that we know not of, the food we know not of, to say again.
Right.
And so like you said, we not knowing that and not knowing how to get it, even though we are seeking it, then we look to the physical satisfaction of drugs, which will sort of make us feel better.
For a little while, but then we end up looking like a zombie eventually, because it's destroying our bodies. And you don't see it, because whether one is building oneself up or tearing oneself down, it's like every day we partake of either a positive or a negative. It's like a page in a book. It's easily destroyed. It doesn't seem to be, that important. It doesn't seem to be noticed compared to the whole book. But if somebody hasn't seen themselves who have taken drugs for a few years, they would see, if they could see themselves when they started and see themselves a few years later, they would see the difference. But every day, looking in the mirror, you don't see it. It's such a subtle change that we don't see it unless, somebody who's honest with us will, say something to us that really cares for us, not afraid to say something. It's, like a friend will tell you what you need to know, not what just we want to hear. So,
and that's such a bad place, because you could find yourself in a hole of addiction where it's like, I can't even stop doing this.
Right.
And then you don't find the peace you were looking for anyway. It's just sort of like makes you feel good, or it takes you down a darker road. So what we're talking about, there is another way. There is a way of finding that peace that we know not of, and this is what it is, through meditation.
Well, it's true. And I think more and more we do know what it is of. But, just going down that dark road you're saying, what we're looking for is to, even with the drugs, to forget, in a way, ourselves. But it's not forgetting, the real self is already pretty much forgotten deeper inside. But we're even looking to forget our masked self, our personality self, our egotistical self. And drugs can, kind of transcend. We get away from looking at it. We feel medicated. You feel like we're forgetting, but that forgetfulness can go to such a degree where we're forgetting to live, that we've transcended our body, but in a destructive way. And of course, if there is an eternal being in us, we have to pick that issue up again and deal with it in a more creative way.
Oh.
It can't be done alone. This is the thing.
It
can't be done alone. Otherwise, it would have been done, That's why these 12-step groups, which are very, useful. People, that they find out they're not alone in what they're dealing with, with their disconnect and feeling miserable and depressed and sad and, disoriented and fearful. So one seeks out these groups and you think you're not alone, and then there's honest confessions, and then it's turning it over to a higher power. And that's where the humility comes in, to admit, I need help. I can't do it alone.
Right.
And that's a very valuable key, even with the meditation. It's an entry to a group, to be honest, to be humble, to say, I'm in trouble. I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I really need help. And that's the beauty of that first step. I mean, just to admit, we're sinning or we're missing the mark. And that admittance takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability, and that is humbleness. It's admitting, it's putting our head down and saying, help me. That's humbleness.
Well, you said something that's interesting that most people might. It's so basic, but most people miss, is that there's an eternal self within us that can connect us with God, which we're disconnected. And I suppose meditation will take us to that eternal self.
Well, at this point, to me, there's no supposing anymore. I used to compare it like a scientist. I would do it and then not do it. Now, first of all, those who maybe remember the other talk, it took me 3 months, folks, to put a saddle on the wild horse in me to get still enough, to be still and know, as the saying goes. And it's worthy.
Wow, that's good. I like that. That's a great scripture. Be still and know.
That's it. Be still and know. Physically, emotionally, mentally. We think we're free. Try and look at a tree or a flower, for 10 minutes. See if your mind doesn't get out of the present moment and go to the future or the past. And you'll see how little freedom we have. Even those who are not partaking of a lot of drugs, so to speak. But there's a lot of drugs even in the food. But even then, you'll say, I'm not as in control of myself as I think I am. And that'll give you a little clue in a monkey racing mind how little control we actually apply to our own selves, let alone to anything else in life.
Continue to part 2.
So, your question of meditation and what is it, is to me really the door out of any mess that we can perceive or actually be in, whether physical, emotional, or mental. There are great teachers out there, as there are in any field, very few way up in the mountaintops, who have been sharing ways out of this situation that we all find ourselves in. Like prayer is a talking to God or our higher self, for those who don't like the word God, and meditation is a listening to the response.